Well, welcome to this episode of the Poetry of Healing. And as you can see, I have a guest with me, Mr. Walter L. Johnson Sr. So, welcome, Walter.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And this show is all about how men grieve. And so I encourage you to stay with us. Walter has a compelling, riveting story of loss and love. And so before we begin, I'd like to guide you and invite you through a centering exercise. And we do this kind of to bring us into this space, bring our focus into this space for this special time together. So I'm going to invite you to either lower your gaze or close your eyes. And I'm going to take you through a heart math exercise. And this is an exercise to enrich your heart and have your heart just be prepared for the love, loss, and then healing that we'll talk about during this time. And so I ask you to take a nice deep breath in through your nose and just fill your lungs as much as you can. And then out through your mouth like you're blowing out a candle. Again, in through your nose, deep, 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 and then out through your mouth. And then the next 3 breaths, we're going to take a heart breath. So you're going to take a deep breath in through your nose. Imagine your heart expanding as you breathe in, and then out through your mouth, and your heart is contracting. Again, take a slow, deep breath in through your nose and watch your heart expand. And it's almost being lit up with this bright, warm light. And now you're going to exhale, and your heart gets smaller. And then one more time, inhale through your nose, your heart gets bigger. And now drop into your heart something or someone you love. Or something, yes. And then out through your mouth, and your heart contracts. Lastly, I'm going to ask you to take a nice deep breath in. And as you exhale slowly, you can bring your gaze up or open your eyes and enter this session. So for those of you who have just joined us, I'm here today with Mr. Walter L. Johnson Sr., and we're just going to drop into a discussion about how men grieve. Okay? And so, Walter, it's so wonderful to have you. And I'll tell the viewers that we have known each other for many years. We worship together, you and your late wife. We worship together at the same church, and we sang in the choir together. So there are a lot of connections. But I think the one that I really want to highlight is that you're like a brother to me, because you were like a son to my dad. You just embrace him at times when I just got so fatigued because of the mental capacity issues. So I privately thank you. I publicly thank you for all that you did for me and my family. So with that introduction, with that foundation, Walter, tell us a little bit about your background as much as you feel comfortable sharing.
I'm originally from Louisiana. I came to California with my grandmother in 1959. I was 10 years old, and I attended high school, elementary school, all within Oakland, and have a degree in management from St. Mary's College in Moraga. And I worked for the city of Oakland for 32 years. I was my last 5 years of employment with the city, I was the HR director for the city. And prior to that, I was over all the benefits for the city. I've been retired in 2004 So in July, I've been retired 20 years, and I feel very thankful and blessed for the life that I've had up to this point.
Mhm, mhm. So you are retired from a formal job, but you do some community service and support work in the community. Would you like to mention that a little bit?
Yeah, and also after I retired, I was going to say for about 5 or 6 years, I actually worked, went into banking, and I was not familiar with that, but I had a great friend, Sir Arnold Grisham, who I think you know quite well. Uh,
That's my husband. Yeah.
Arnold has a way of convincing you to do things that you really have not done before, and I had not ever done any banking. But he convinced me to doing it, and I was able to work with him for almost 6 years within banking.
Mhm.
I've been on seven. I was actually on seven senior housing boards,
Yes.
and I felt that you know it was just taking a lot of time. So I'm down now to one senior housing board, and I'm on the City of Oakland Police and Fire Retirement Board, which that was under my management when I worked. So I'm just really now on two boards, but where a lot of my time is involved now is within my church. I'm on the deacon board and president of the Unity Choir. I sing in the male chorus. I'm on the several ministries within the church. So those things keep me busy. And occasionally I have an opportunity to play around the golf.
Okay. Well, I haven't seen you on the golf course yet, so I'm not going to co-sign that. But you want to sing a tune for us, Walter? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for sharing your rich background. As long as I've known you, I didn't realize all of the talents that you had in those areas. So thank you for sharing. So now I'd like to kind of focus on why we are here, and I just like you to tell us how you met your love, and just start from the beginning, whatever you'd like to share.
Well, after being divorced for about 4 or 5 years, I got back into the dating scene, and I mean, looking for a date. And I never will forget this date, October 17th, 1997 was when I met my queen. And I call her my queen, but her name was Gaynell. And from that date forward, for that, I said, well, okay, we're too old to have all these long type engagements, so we need to get married. And well, she fought that off for a while. I said, and every time we would get together, I said, okay, well, when are we going to get married? So exactly 1 year to the date, October 17th, 1998, was when we actually said I do to one another. And that picture that was taken in Lake Merritt, for those columns are when you walk around it, and that was October 17th, 1998. As you can see, I had hair and I was a little thinner.
Okay, so we'll keep that visual. We'll keep that in our head. So go ahead. So you two had an
And
incredible.
and one of the things that and so she retired about 4 years before I did. And as a matter of fact, she was actually 7 years older than I. And you always have this thing about can younger men and older ladies actually come together? And we actually came together as a couple, and we blended our family. She had a son, a daughter. I had two sons, and we as a family we blended together really well. My daughter, I don't use the word step, but my daughter, she and I and my two sons, we actually text every morning to say good morning to one another, see how each one are doing, and wishing each and every one of us a happy day. So that's every day. So we thank God for that technology where you don't have to pick up the phone, you just can send a text of love. So that's every day. And then so after we married, and we would have, and for I would say up until if I can get it to me, actually God receiving her, we had I would have to say I'm 75 now, but the 25 years that we were married, those were the best years of my life because there was a second marriage for both of us. She actually had been single for 25 years before she and I even met. And so when we met, it was just kind of like, I would have to say love at first sight. Now, I have to say, initially, we did not care for each other. I thought she was stuck up and she thought I was arrogant. So that in itself, but we realized that, but I found that she was so beautiful externally, but she was even more beautiful internally. She had a heart of gold. And she realized that I was not arrogant. It just said I just felt confident in the things that I had to do for she as well as my family. So for those 23, we traveled. We took Baltic cruise, Hawaii. And then we did several road trips. One of the things she had planned to do when she retired, she was, and this was before we married. She said, "Well, I'm going to live 6 months in Louisiana, and I'm going to live 6 months in California." Well, when she told me that, I said that could be a deal breaker because I don't intend to move back to Louisiana. But we found a compromise, and that compromise was that as long as her mom was alive, we would make sure that we would be there. So we did that. And we had at least 10, 12, maybe 15 road trips every year to Louisiana. Occasionally we would fly, but we enjoyed driving because we could always take the side trips. We would take 10 going through Arizona. We'd go off to Tombstone. So we always Grand Canyon, all over the place. So she was a navigator and I was a driver, and we just had great times. So with that, then the last, I would say, year, 2022 was a very challenging year. Actually, it was 2021 because her son, had kidney and colon cancer. So we actually started with him in 2021. We went and stayed with him a couple of months for him to, for his healing and his surgery. And then in January 10th of 2022, the Lord called him home. And that was the beginning of our grief process in that regard. Because then we had at least 7, 8 trips back to Dallas, Fort Worth, where he lived, because he was not married. He did not have any children. He was single. So we then started, his sister, mom, and I, we made about 7 trips there dealing with his estate. And in October, when we had finished everything, we on our way home, I remember getting us saying, "Babe, we don't have to go back there anymore. We finished with that." I said, "Yes, so we can now go on with our life." Well, we can always have.
Before you go forward, can I just dial back a little bit and say that I knew Gaynell. She was absolutely gorgeous physically, and I agree. Her heart was made of gold. And when you saw Walter, you saw Gaynell. When you saw Gaynell, you saw Walter. They were inseparable. And I just want to share, and I'm so glad that you shared these pictures with me. Would you mind just giving us a little backdrop of each picture, or trying to create memories?
It was the day of our wedding, and we were headed to the reception hall, which was on the other side of the lake. But she, when we would walk the lake, she always said, this spot here is where we would take some of our wedding pictures. So we actually went to the lake after the ceremony, and that's where we took our pictures there. And I walk the lake now, and it's ironic that that pole to the left, that pole now is wrapped with a branch that has wrapped around it. But every time I pass that pole, that section, I always reflect back to October 17th, 1998, because that was the day we were standing there, and that was probably, we had an evening wedding, so that was probably about 5:30, because it's a little dark there. So that was, yeah.
You can see that it's almost dusk. Right. And for those viewers who have just dropped in, I'm with Mr. Walter L. Johnson Sr., And he's just taking us through uh, the memories with his wife Gaynell. And so I'm going to start showing pictures that he shared with me, and he's going to give a little backdrop. Okay, so let's go. We have about 5 more pictures.
That picture was when Gaynell and I was in San Diego. And we were there for a board, one of my boards I was on. We were down there for a board meeting, and we were actually out to lunch. And actually, there was an evening dinner that evening there in San Diego.
Yeah, I cropped out the empty dinner plates. And Gaynell wore those hats, and she wore them well.
Yeah, and that was an evening that one of our friends, a guy that used to work for me, his son was getting married, and they had a reception. So that day, Gaynell and I actually had gone to the wedding and to that reception, and that was up in Pittsburgh, here in California.
Mhm.
That picture there really touched me. That's our favorite picture. That picture was taken in Louisiana. We had gone down to the Bayou Classic, and we were just out and about that day. And that was her favorite hat, and that was my favorite cat. And as a matter of fact, I have that kind of like set up right now on the fireplace as somewhat of a little memorial for 2 years. So I will be taking it down in November. But we were at the Bayou Classic for that, and our daughter said, "You guys, I need to take this picture," and that was the results of that picture being taken.
And this picture captures the essence of your love and the joy that you shared between. It's just perfect. Yeah.
We were happy.
Mhm.
That was Father's Day at church one Sunday, and so yes, she loved her hats, and she has some beautiful hats. And I always tried to accent her with whatever that she wore with what I was going to try to wear. So that was Father's Day, and that was after church one Father's Day. That was about 3 years ago.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Mhm. And this picture.
And that picture was Mother's Day.
Oh,
And that was after church one Sunday. And so we took that picture there on Mother's Day. And
mhm.
we were getting ready to go to dinner. So that was after church as well.
Yeah. So we went through your meeting, and the story you tell about one not really liking the other or thinking something about the other is so familiar. It happens. Maybe that's a sign that you really do belong together if you come together in that way. So let's move to, if we might, Walter, to day. Um, the day that Gayleen left.
I would have to say that that morning, like I said, all that story is just like yesterday. That morning, November the 4th, 2022. Beautiful morning. We got up, had breakfast, talking and all that. And that evening, we had gone through the day. So that evening, I guess around uh, about 6 o'clock, she says, Walter, she says, I want to go to emergency. And she said, I'm not feeling well. So I said, you want me to call 911? No, I'm going to get dressed and we're going to go. So I'm being an obedient husband, doing what I'm supposed to do. She got dressed and we got into the car and we headed. Kaiser San Andreas is only about less than 3 miles from us. And I was driving and I noticed that she began to have breathing problems. And I got to emergency. And I heard her take I would say her last breath. So I said I was going to get a wheelchair. And so when I got back, and I had dirty limit when I got back, and I had to literally pick her out of the car and put her in the wheelchair. They rushed her to the back. and they worked on her. So and so at 8:04, they came out and told me that that she was not. They did not revive her. Um, then I had the difficult task, calling my daughter and sharing it with her. And at the time, I did not understand the 5 steps of grief: anger, denial, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. I didn't understand that as I understand those things later. But what I did realize is that I accepted before any of the other stuff. I've never been angry, and I and never did not been in denial about it, and never tried to bargain. But acceptance for me was the key. I knew that when I left that hospital that night, that she was not coming back with me. No matter what I did and no matter what I said, she was not coming back with me. So I had to accept the fact that she had been received by God Almighty. Then I realized that, okay, I heard a lot of people as I talked along the way say, well, I can't sleep in that room anymore. I can't stay in this house any longer if I'm alone. And I refused to do that. I came home that night, even with grief and everything, and I slept in the bed that we had slept in the bed for 25 years. Um, the only thing, and then my sisters and family all felt that, well, you're in this large house and you need to have someone with you. And I said, no, I don't need a babysitter. And I said that at some point, if someone stayed with me, um, at some point they're going to want to go home. And if I'm going to be the baby, I would be at home. I would still be home alone. So I said I need to deal this um, out by myself. I also felt too that, and that's when I realized that because of my faith and my trust in God Almighty, that even though I was in the house with no one, but He was within me spiritually and physically. So and they said, well, do you want to go to counseling? I said, no, I'm going to interact with the ultimate counselor. I said, now, as a deacon, I'm always telling people that are dealing with grief what God is going to do, how He's going to comfort you, and He's going to guide you. He's going to do all that stuff. I said, so if I can't use those same values for myself, then I'm a hypocrite. So I was really my own deacon. I provided the teacher to other family members as well. But what I did find out is that I talked to many men and women that had lost their spouse. And what I found is that for men, men handle grief differently. Women, they have apostate. You ladies gonna always come together and say, hey, look, come on, girl, let's go shopping. Let's go look for these shoes or something. You're gonna take that you guys you can run together. And even not that, yes, actually, let's go have lunch. Well, as a man, we will probably go out and have a round of golf, but that's about it, because you go to the cafeteria there and have a hot dog or a hamburger and have a beer, and you're going home. So I'm still back at home by myself. But what really assisted me during this process too was there were 2 guys that had lost their wives, and they actually came over within 3 days of my loss of David, and they just kind of like took me under their wings, and they just shared things with me, and provide. As a matter of fact, we have breakfast now once a month, and we had it this morning, ironically, that we come together. And what I found is that was really good for me. But also, too, I found too is that a lot of times we get stuck because I don't know if it's, we all grieve differently. But I always say too that the grief weapon stays loaded, but you never know when the trigger is going to be pulled. I cry a lot, even 20 months after the fact. I find myself crying. Monday, I went out to the cemetery. I got me a chair, pull up next to the vault area there, and put my earpods in and listened to Richard Smallwood, but I sat there for 30 minutes. What I found too is that I also thought too that there was a period of time I was hurting so bad, I thought I was having a heart attack. I actually went to emergency thinking that I was having a heart attack. The doctor said, "No, you're okay. Your vital signs, everything is fine." Then I had a friend to tell me, so you know what they want? He says, the reason why you were hurting so bad, he says, the deeper your love that you have someone, the deeper the hurt can be. And I said, okay, because we were like, as you say, peas and carrots. We were always together. And I always said she was my queen. And I always wanted to make sure that my queen was comfortable. You know, from the South, and then I learned as a younger man that you open doors for your other queen when they're getting out of the car. If they're going into a house or any building, you open doors. So that was just part of my doing. And she was so spoiled. She told me about this. She was so spoiled on me opening doors and stuff like that. She and her best friend had gone shopping, and the best friend drove, and so Lynette was still sitting in the car waiting for someone to come around and open the door. She said, "Gaynell, you better well get out. Walter's not with us today, okay?"
You know, I've seen you in action. I have, and it's not that you hovered, it's that you embraced your queen in such a special and very natural way. And yeah, I'm here to co-sign that because I saw it every time you were together. Well, you to go back a little and responses to grief are physical, psychological, social, behavioral. You talked about the pain being so intense that you thought you were having a heart attack. What other symptoms or conditions appeared as you were going through the grief early and, of course, later?
Early on, my biggest challenge then was number one, eating alone. I lost 20 pounds because, first of all, I did not have the appetite that I once had when we were together. And then the fact when I would eat, I would not eat. I would get a bowl of soup, make a sandwich, but not full meals that were balanced with vegetables, your meat, and your starch. And like I said, I dropped 20 pounds real fast. And I ended up, and then there are things that I delayed doing. Uh, I haven't even gone in her purse. I set her. I mean, her purse was in the closet where she would sit it all the time. It's been there now for 20 months. And so I've set a timeline for myself to really start dealing with her personal stuff. What I had to do was change the bedroom around to move some of the things that she had in it that brought memory, as well as we had pictures all over the house. So what I did was I moved all the pictures into one room, which is our living room. And so every morning I had this one picture that's sitting on the speaker. I would walk in, I say, "Good morning, babe," and then I'll open up the blinds and I'll go to the rest of the house. And that was it. But I have to tell you, I had one unique experience. I guess about 2 months after she passed, I was lying in the bed and I was kind of halfway, but I felt this hug. She literally hugged me and said, "I love you." And I was telling the daughter about that. And she says, "I want my hug too." I said, "Well, we never know. Yes, you know your mom, she's something, okay." I would say the very next month, Regina called me and said, "Walter, I had my hug."
Oh,
And I thought that was very touching
yes.
to know that was there and that she was still working. And I still get my orders. Like, I have not washed. She would wash clothes every Wednesday. I made that change. I don't wash every Wednesday. I wash every other Saturday now. Okay,
Mm.
and she said, okay, it's time for you to change that bed. So it was my instruction, but I would say that the period of going of not having anyone in the house with me was challenging.
Mhm.
But I knew I had to go through it because I did not want a crush, and I knew by me actually uh, just hanging in there,
Mhm.
things were just going to strengthen for me. Realizing that I knew that if someone was with me, then I'm going to spend more time trying to make sure that they're comfortable. But what
Mhm.
I really needed to be doing was working on myself. And I
Yeah.
will say that I did not lock myself up in a dark room. I interacted with people, and you have to do that because regardless of how you and also we have to adjust for the new norm. I'm dealing with my new norm now, and the new norm is that hey, look, the love of my life is not with me here physically, but she's here with me spiritually, and that is one hole in my heart that will never close. And anyone that's dealing with grief, I think I mean, if you really, that the two of you really was very closely connected, that hole never closes. But I would say God allows you to have the strength to move on, realizing that you lost a person, that you're no longer with a person that you care a lot.
Yeah. Well, Walter, what you've done, you've taken us through, and for those of you who are just dropping into this episode, I'm with Walter, and he's taken us through meeting his queen and the wonderful things they did together, the travel and just being together, and then the night she passed away, and then his grieving and that journey of grieving. And so, Walter, you talked about the pain in the heart, the maybe the sleep disturbances, not being able to eat. Even though you're a fantastic cook, you weren't able to do that because your queen wasn't with you anymore. But you made a point of saying that physically she's not with you, but spiritually she is with you. So I just want to ask, and you started giving tips for others who have had a loss. So you lost your queen, but what you're talking about is a reaction to loss. And so there may be men out there who have other losses, may not have lost a queen, but have had other losses. And I really believe that what you're sharing and how you're coping and how you're taking the journey can apply to those losses as well. So I just have a couple of more questions before we close. And one is, what was the turning point for you? Because you talked about accepting very early that she wasn't coming back, and that's a key component of the healing journey. Is there anything else? Was there an event or a memory that caused you to be able to kind of move through your healing journey?
I think it may be a couple. And one thing I wanted to share is that the next year that she passed, I actually put our Christmas tree up. I did that. And I did that because that was something that we would do together. And I did it also for Sam, but I felt that that was a strengthening process for me. But I then, when I was doing that doing that and, and getting comfortable, I really thought I had gotten this grief thing together. I thought I knew it because hey, look, I was a city of Oakland department head, and I made major decisions, and this was going to be just. I mean, I can get through this process. God has a way of humbling me. He humbled me very. I May 14th, May 14th and May 15th of 2023 was because May 14th, 2023 was Mother's Day. The next day was Gaynell's birthday. Would have been her birthday. And I'm gonna tell you something. I cried all that week. I cried every day of that week. And this kept divorce him said, like God told me, he said, Walter, I'm not the city of Oakland. So there's nothing in your job description that's gonna tell me how you're gonna be you so bad you got this grief thing coming. You see, you need, because I was telling everybody I'm okay. I said, you need to stop saying that. I said, so I started saying, I'm going to be okay in God's time. Once I humbled myself and got myself out of the way and started really just having a little bit more patience, it allowed me to be able to move forward because I had already said, okay, 1 year from I should not do anything. Because you can make some major decisions that can come back to haunt you. So I didn't not make any major decisions within this 1 year. I said I was not even going to be thinking about, do I have a new companion or what was it about? That was nowhere in the thought process for a year. And I got through that. Now, I know everybody will say, well, 1 year and he's already out with someone. First of all, it's really nobody else's business. How you decide that you're going to deal, or when did you decide that you're going to be with someone? God did not put us on this earth to be alone. So if he calls your loved one home, then he has something else open up for you. So I dealt with it the way that I felt, and it had nothing to do with what people thought. And I think we should not put the emphasis on what people think that your next steps may be. You should do what you feel comfortable with. So that's when I realized I'm going to do it. And so when I made that decision, it worked out for me, and I was ready to move on to the next step. So that's where I am.
So I'm going to ask you. I made some questions here. Let me just see if there's something else I didn't ask you. What would you like people to take away from our conversation?
Two things. I still wear my wedding ring, okay? That's comfort to me. You might not want to wear your ring, but all I say to anyone that's dealing with a grieving process, do not lock yourself up in a room and looking at four walls in the dark or even in the light. Get out, get among people. Number one, you have to do what's comfortable for you. Now, people can have suggestions, but what their suggestion might not be what's best for you. It's all I listen to everything that people share with me, but I did what I felt what was comfortable for me. Also, people gonna they can see, they don't really, sometimes they will say things they don't really realize. Really, all you need sometimes just someone to listen to you. So find you someone that can talk to you. I mean, that you can talk to, that has a listening ear, and that's someone that you can trust. And then also make sure that whatever you do, you're going to be doing it for what's best for you. Now, I'm a Christian. I consider myself as a strong, staunch Christian. So I believe that God closes doors, but he also opens doors. So what you have to do with this process, you got to have some patience. Like I say, I have 3 or 4 closets of clothes I have not done anything with. I have not gone into her purse. And it's just because I wasn't comfortable doing that. But that's going to come a time when you're going to do it. And it's a process. Grieving is a process. It's not something that you're going to be able to deal with overnight. It's not so, and then not only is it's an ongoing process. But as you go through this process, you're going to strengthen. You're going to get strong. So that's what we are.
So as we close, is there anything else that I haven't asked you about that you'd like to share? I do know that you wrote you wrote something that you had planned to share at year 1, and if you'd like to read that now or just share from your heart what you'd like to end with. Mhm.
Well, what I've done is that based upon the question that you've asked, I've extracted information from that document. The only
Okay.
thing, the only thing that I said when God told me that I was I was not in charge of him, I actually apologized and I got on my knees and prayed because I felt that I had overstepped my bounds. Okay, but all I can say to anyone, anyone that's dealing with grief, I set in my mind that yes, I do feel that I am going to look for companionship. But in looking for companionship, I really wanted to look for someone that may have lost their spouse. For the simple reason that we both have something that would be in common. Triggers come at different times. So you would need someone to understand why you're having that trigger, why you're crying, or why you might be in the mood that you're in. And I do feel that, over time, the Lord gets you to that point.
Yeah.
So don't, do not push yourself, to, well, I don't think I feel like doing this. Well, you can find yourself slipping into depression. And that's not something that you want to do because, as I say, at my age now, I'm in the fourth quarter, and I don't really know at what time that God may call me home. But the good part about it is that I'm not doing the 2 minute drill. So that's where I'm at. That's
Well,
all.
you have opened the door to part two of our conversation, and that is finding love after the loss of your spouse. So we're just going to drop that and leave that on the table because I am going to have you come back and both of you talk about this new life. Walter, this has been, I had to hold back tears at some parts of your story. Um, they were so precious and so sacred. And I want to thank you for being so vulnerable and so transparent with your journey because there's so many, and I'll say men and women, particularly men, that may not know how to navigate this because socially, that's not how you're socialized. And so I know that you have given insight and inspiration to anyone who's going to hear this. And viewers, I just encourage you to share this show um, with, with others who you believe it might be helpful. So, I asked you if you wanted to stay as I close, so I'm going to take us through some affirmations that will kind of support and highlight what you've shared with us. And just as a reminder, affirmations are help reinforce positive beliefs and attitudes that we have or think about, and then it really helps us to empower and take control of our lives and just enhance that inner strength. So I have 7, and this is how it goes. I will say the affirmation out loud, and then you repeat it. And if you're at a place where you can say it out loud, that's fine because energy words have energy. Otherwise, just mentally say it. Okay, so here we go. And if you want to lower your gaze or close your eyes and also visualize the words that I am saying, that also helps. So here we go. Just take a nice deep breath in, and then as you exhale, gently close your eyes. So I'll say it, and then you repeat it. Every day, I am growing stronger, embracing love, and creating a future filled with possibility. Every day, I'm growing stronger, embracing love, and creating a future filled with possibility. Each tear reflects the deep love I had and helps me find peace. Each tear reflects the deep love I had and helps me find peace. I honor my journey through loss, knowing it leads to renewal and peace. I honor my journey through loss, knowing it leads to renewal and peace. Cherished memories warm my heart, guiding me to brighter tomorrows each day. Cherished memories warm my heart, guiding me to brighter tomorrows each day. In sorrow, I remember the love and the support that surrounds and guides me. In sorrow, I remember the love and support that surrounds and guides me. With each breath, I nurture hope, joy, and the strength to move forward. With each breath, I nurture hope, joy, and the strength to move forward. And lastly, the love I shared lives on, guiding me through each step of healing. The love I shared lives on, guiding me through each step of healing. So I'm going to ask you to take a nice deep breath in. And as you exhale, open your eyes. And Walter, I just thank you, thank you, thank you. Your journey is precious, sacred, and a gift to anyone who's heard it. And I just can't wait to come back for part two so we can talk about how this all turns out. Okay? All right.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. So, viewers, I just ask that you join me every first and third Sunday right here on blackdoctor.org to have and experience more stories about healing. Until then, I wish you love and light, and thank you for joining us today. And now I'll share some resources with you. Thank you.